Hey, everybody, welcome to the Funny Shrink Podcast. I'm Mike Cateo, and we are here today with a very special guest. I don't know where my co host is, so hopefully he'll show up. But in the meantime, we have someone who is very cool, very amazing. I'm looking for his bio. So hold on one second. As you could tell, I'm not good at this preparation stuff. So away we go. Um, I can't find it. I'm just gonna ad lib this stuff if that's okay with you guys. Dr. Dave. Dr. Dave wrote the book called Injury From Injured to Athlete. I probably got that wrong. He's a great person. He does a lot of work with injuries and coming back from injuries. And I met him a couple of weeks ago and was wondering, what is up with how you help people? You seem to do great stuff. And he said he has a podcast. I took a listen. There are a lot of great things he has on his podcast. I listened to one with a guy who had a brain injury. They were talking to his wife. It was very inspirational. So let's give a warm welcome to Dr. Dave Meyer, everybody. Woo! Hey,
Mike,
Dave, how
Hey, Mike, thank you for having me come on. I love the name. It caught my attention. The Funny Shrink podcast. That's awesome. I think humor is so important to injury rehabilitation in particular. And just,
Thank you.
yeah.
We have our co-host popped on the screen. I'm gonna bring him in
All right.
and do a quick introduction for you two. Hey Frank, welcome to the show. Did I get in the way of your beauty sleep or something? We can't hear you. Hey Frankie. So while we're waiting for Frank, why don't you just tell us what you were going to tell us? I'm sorry I interrupted you.
No. Thank you for having me on. I'm looking forward to talking about some of my experiences as a physical therapist that's now delved deeper into the mental side and the psychology of injury, illness, and just really bettering your life through a physical challenge, which is what the inspiration was behind my book, Injured to Elite, which I published back in October of 2020. It's on Amazon. You could also find it on if you just Google it. But basically, I worked for the St. Louis Cardinals as their medical and rehab coordinator and sports background, and just really expanding the horizons and figuring out how I can help people through the mental side of what happens after suffering physical ailments.
That's amazing. You were you a big baseball fan growing up?
Oh, big time. Yeah, I grew up on the island, and out here it's Mets, Yankees, and maybe a little more Mets on the island than some other places out here. But yeah, I grew up a diehard Mets fan. I was born and raised.
See, I liked you up until now, Dave.
Oh, you're a Yankee fan?
Yankee fan.
Can you guys hear me now?
We got you.
Yeah, look at that.
Yes. A fan of the Mutts. I can't believe that all that time.
Where are you from? How you doing, Frank?
I'm good. I'm from North Carolina. We don't have a baseball team as far as I know. We didn't have a football team till the Jaguars, and I'm not even sure they're still in Charlotte. I have no idea.
No, they're not.
Oh, okay. Where do they go?
The Jacksonville Jaguars, right? Unless they changed it again. Yeah, they're in Jacksonville.
You're right. Yeah. Yeah, I lived in San Diego for a long time, and the Chargers had been trying to move for 3 decades, so they were there. Yeah,
they're all over the place. You got teams in Vegas now. I don't know. It's hard
the Raiders in Vegas, just like the TV show with The Rock, Ballers.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I'm a guilty Mets fan. I mean, it's really self-inflicted wounds more than other people having to add it on to that. So thank you guys. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. So you were.
Go ahead, Frank.
No, that's right. Go ahead.
No, after you.
So you suffered an injury that I missed, I believe, Dave. Did you? I assume that's the genesis of your book and your business, correct?
It's very interesting, Frank. I'm going to go into that a little bit. I don't know if you ever work with a physical therapist, but
I have.
You have. You know what a common question you ask a PT is? Let's say you have a knee injury.
Why does this hurt so much?
Well, yeah, that. But you know what else they ask us? Hey, have you ever had the injury before? And that's when I get imposter syndrome. I'm like, no, I haven't. So actually, funny enough, I haven't. It wasn't real. Well, look, let me backtrack. We've all had our injuries, right? I had, for me, when I was playing baseball, I had my ankle sprains and stuff. But for me, it was actually a little different. So I grew up actually around. It wasn't a physical injury as much. My father was a sick man. He suffered from kidney disease. So he had his first transplant when he was 18 back in the 70s from his mother. Yeah. And it lasted 27 years. Suffered from a disease called glomerulonephritis. So basically kidney failure and young age. My dad was a huge sports fan. And as of course, by osmosis, I developed into that. And basically his kidney failed again when I was about 12, 13 and a little younger maybe. And he went back on dialysis. And I saw the side effects of chronic illness on the family. I was an only child, and my mother kind of was a caretaker of my father and took care of the family. And my father still worked, and he really didn't really, let the illness succumb to the illness. So this inspired me to go on this journey of helping others and finding that purpose there. So it wasn't my own injury. It's funny. I always get a little superstitious when people ask me that.
Yeah. Have you ever had your ACL blowout?
Yeah, exactly. So no, I haven't, but
I have.
It was more indirect. You have?
Yeah.
All right.
Like any guy, I'm playing basketball, and what actually happened was the MCL went out, and then the other one on the other side went out. Each time that happened, I thought it's just tendonitis. I'll take some Motrin. I'll come back in a couple of weeks. Right. Well, after the tendons on either side are gone, the only thing left you have is an ACL. And, of course, plant, snap, gone. If I'd gone in when the first one got torn, then I could have rehabbed it and come back and not gone through but yeah. So anyway, I blew out the ACL and saw a physical therapist for 8 weeks and then did 8 months of rehab and got back on the basketball court. And
that must have, talk about, the Funny Shrink podcast. I mean, not too funny. You injure one knee, then the other knee. It all, sometimes, you know what? Like you look at some of these situations, the players that keep getting hurt and I think you guys said it. You said it in the podcast. What is it? Trauma over time is funny. What tragedy over time is
tragedy
humor?
Plus time. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Tragedy plus time. What? Yeah. So it's funny, like working in the rehab setting, my father was an example of this. I'm sorry if you had specific things you were going to ask me. I was jumping into it.
No, we're
oh, all right.
Yeah. Like a hug on Tuesday.
Yeah. All right. We'll take anything.
All right, cool. So yeah, I was, my father on his last days, we were in the hospital at Columbia Presbyterian, and the Wizard of Oz was playing on the little TV that swings out. And he was like, just before he got super sick, he aspirated. So like he went downhill quickly. And he eventually had lung cancer, but he started singing along to the Wizard of Oz. And like my mother and I were kind of like, I guess we weren't sure if like he was starting to like psychologically, if it was affecting him. I don't know. My father was definitely, he had a massive sense of humor. And I think it was probably just a coping little thing. It's like the jingle, he liked it. He started singing to it. And like it's funny because you look at it, you're like, oh, something's wrong with him. This isn't good. He's singing along to the Wizard of Oz right now. And I still have that in my head. And I'm thinking about it. I'm like, wow, what better way of dealing with a long lasting bunch of shit medically and physically than laughing about it?
Yeah, I would agree.
That's how I've gotten through everything I have is humor. Without that, I'd probably be dead.
Wow.
Well, and I am Dave, the mental health comedian, and I speak on suicide prevention. So
Yeah.
I get that question. That's the first question anybody ever asked me. Okay, let me get this straight. You're a comedian and you talk about suicide. Just exactly
Right.
how does that work?
That's awesome. That really is cool. I mean, we're so quick to prescribe the exercises and to prescribe the medication and the surgery. And like, how can humor just uplift somebody in the matter of seconds when an antidepressant probably takes 6 months to really do anything, if ever? It's crazy. It's amazing, actually, really.
Well, and in my speaking, the humor helps when I'm talking about depression, thoughts, suicide. The humor helps people digest the information.
Right.
You know, because if you spend 90 minutes talking about mortality and morbidity, God, people want to open a vein before they leave.
Right,
So.
right.
You know, we were talking before we started on the air, and you said that you think the brain is a powerful tool. Like,
Yeah.
and you know, I had a testing done a few years ago, and it showed that the left. So I'm left hemiparesis. So my brain, the right side of my brain is injured.
Right.
The left side of my brain remapped itself to control everything. So look at these scans. The right side of my brain doesn't really light up so much, but when I'm moving my left arm or my left leg, the right side of my the left side of my brain. Oh my God, I'm so confused, left and right.
No, you got it. So, yeah, you're talking about neuroplasticity, which I'm sure both of you know a good amount about, especially, I mean, you lived it. And, you know, neuroplasticity is one way of thinking about what this thing is that I've created. Basically, the model, just like you guys use humor therapeutically, basically what I've done is realize that a growth mindset and psychological flexibility really is an underpinning of why some athletes and individuals, not just athletes, I mean, we're all athletes to some degree, succumb and, wither away, and some people thrive. And I'm so convinced that it's a growth mindset. And if you think about neuroplasticity and what your brain did, how it remapped itself, it's really the same concept. It's this concept of growing through a challenge. And, your speech might be affected because the right side of your brain is affected, but does that improve your ability to utilize body language more effectively? Do you use emotions differently? And it's like, well, if you look at it that way, and that's the perspective of it, maybe you can shift how you think about this as something just negative. And in fact, maybe we can put some positive elements to an injury or an illness or an unfortunate event, or like you were saying, Frank, a suicidal attempt or a thought or what have you.
Well, and I'm pitching a TEDx right now called Depressive Realism. The idea is to reframe depression as into not a negative thing, but a positive thing. And depressive realism, there is some scientific evidence, not a lot yet, but some, that people who are depressed actually see the world more accurately than their neurotypical friends who may be wearing rose-tinted glasses and a little delusional. And so if we can pull that off and reframe depression, then make it an asset, not a liability. So again, taking the negative and reframing the
that's amazing.
No,
one of my goals is to do a TEDx. I love that. I mean, that's depressive realism. I love that.
And this is part of my self-care plan here. This is I
can't see it that well.
It just shows Frank's a professional bodybuilder.
Oh, wow.
So
at 64, Dave, but here's why, because I figured by 60, everybody else would have given up. And I was right. The competition is not that,
I love it.
Yeah. So there's not a lot of guys over 60 still, pumping iron and, doing the keto diet and fasting or whatever. So
natural?
Oh, yeah. The contest I've got coming up in July is the urine. No, they polygraph you beforehand. They urine test you after.
I love it. I'm a very big supporter of natural bodybuilding. I do not really, I don't want to get political, or anything like that. But I'm not the biggest. I have a lot of friends and close people that have gone down routes of using performance enhancing drugs and stuff. Not really my thing, but in a clinical setting, sometimes it is necessary medically.
Oh, absolutely.
But I all the hats off to you. As a guy that was 5'5.5", you asked me, if I had an injury, because I think a lot of PTs, they get into it from their own. For me, it was more so trying to be the short guy, the underdog guy who got under a bench press when I was, 14, 15. And the tall guys in the weight room in high school, they're like, what? Dave is strong as heck. And it was just like falling in love with it right away. And I'm like, I enjoy this. I could be instantly powerful and strong. And it was always the psychology for me. It was always how I felt emotionally. And, it's so funny to me. People are all about, these high intensity training programs and all these things on social media. And my colleagues can't figure it out. They're like, why do people, follow the bandwagon or the BS or drink the Kool-Aid? I'm like, well, it's because they want to feel a certain way. It's it's the first. Yeah, it's how I felt under a barbell the first time.
For me, like I have, as I told you, I have left hemiparesis. So I actually for a few years took testosterone steroids as a way to help my muscles develop, and they're full atrophied. But during that time period, I saw a lot of growth, and it really helped. So
yes, there's a place for it.
Mentally, it did feel good, and like I got way stronger. So that is helpful. I think one of the things is you don't really know like what you know until you do it. Mm-hmm. I didn't know I could lift weights.
That's exactly it. That's that growth mindset. Why not? Just because you have hemiparesis or you had a brain injury, why can't you be a bodybuilder? I mean, that's crazy to think you can't. I mean, you should, all shapes and sizes and injuries. Yeah. And ages.
Well, speaking of injuries, when I had my ACL replaced, I had a wonderful PT, and we were chatting away, and he had been a big time skier. He loved going skiing, on the Black Diamond runs. I mean, and I said, so you going skiing this winter? He goes, Frank, being a PT, I've seen so many. He said, I think maybe the majority of injuries I've seen have been people on the ski slopes. He goes, so I've given it up.
100%. I had a client today, a skier, Utah, backcountry skier. I mean, skiing out in the West out there is like what football is in the South. And so they're obsessed. And it's crazy. I've seen so many knee injuries from skiing, especially in the general population. It's insane.
Yeah.
But then snowboarding's got its stuff too. Wrist injuries, head injuries.
I'm very accident prone. The other day I went to sit on a swivel chair, the kind that moves. It fell out from under me. I ended up hitting my head on the edge of the chair and gave myself another brain injury.
Well, I'm glad that you sounded like you're recovering well.
Yes.
It's funny.
Right now.
I'm sorry?
No, go ahead, Dave.
There are 3 of you right now. I can't wait.
Oh, yeah.
It reminds, this is kind of, and I want to go here with you guys. It's funny. First of all, we like to say the phrase, it's funny, which I just caught myself doing, but we like to laugh in the slapstick stuff when people are falling and all that. And I'm thinking to the episode I did, I was telling you a little bit about, Mike, with the wife of a man who had polymyositis, and he was a marathon runner, and he was in Runner's World and all these things, and eventually died. And, something very tragic for her. And they had a great relationship. And I asked her on the podcast, like, what was the secret to your relationship in terms of your marriage and how you supported him through this, running 7 marathons? It's insane with this neurological condition that's terminal. And she said, humor was a huge part of it. They were both intellectuals, and they were readers and writers. And, humor was a big thing for them. And she told me that she once found themselves on the floor because he needed help getting up from a seated position, and they would do a little thing together with their hands, like kind of, buddy system. And he fell once. He'd fall a lot, and this particular time they were laughing on the floor, and uncontrollable laughter. And I guess like I wasn't really prepared. You don't want to hear like, oh, it's laughter, but I'm like really taking a second and thinking about that and the power of it, and also just the deeper side, the emotional side of how laughter is like an innate coping mechanism. And we don't really, you have the movie, what was the movie with Robin Williams? Brilliant movie, Patch Adams. But like, we don't really give it enough attention in terms of how laughter creates an instant kind of, neural pathway that it releases endorphins and all this. You guys probably know more about that than me.
I agree. It's amazing. Laughter, it can heal most things. And that's kind of what in my private practice as a therapist, I make sure to laugh with the clients I have because I want them to see not everything is hard. Not everything is so terrible that you can't deal with it in a humorous way. I mean, humor has saved our lives so many times over that, if I look at my problems, I would never get out of bed anymore. But if I look at my problems and I make them just a little bit inappropriate, they're funny. So like I can't use my left hand. At some point, I started calling my wife, then girlfriend, Two Hands. When I needed something done. Hey, Two Hands, could you hand me that? Two Hands, could you open this?
I like that. Yeah. She's the freak.
Exactly. She is the freak. She can hear me too, by the way. So it's and I started one day. I called our little girl, her 7-year-old. I go, "Hey, Two Hands Junior." She goes, "Don't call me that." Two Hands.
No, hey, I mean, sometimes I wish I could snap myself into laughter more. I get a little too serious. And that's something that in my book, I didn't write about really laughter specifically. And if I rewrote the second version, you know what? I'd probably spend a little time on that. That's one of those right under your nose things that you don't always think about as a way to treat a problem.
Tell me the name of your book again.
The name of the book is Injured to Elite, a guide to empowering yourself to transform your life after injury. So It's a holistic approach to, bettering yourself through a physical challenge or,
And do you speak on the subject as well? Do you do public speaking?
I love to speak about this. I started doing more and more talks about 2017, 2018. Did one at UCLA. Then I started doing some more out on the East Coast before this happened at some CrossFit gyms. And obviously webinars is more so where I've been doing my speaking over the last year, like all of us. But I love talking about, just opening people's minds up to the mental side of how to get through their injury. Because it's not something actually that gets enough attention.
Sure.
Right.
But I'm curious, sorry, go ahead, Mike.
No, I was just going to say, you're doing amazing work. And I know so many people who could be in your book. Just they take their challenges and they roll with it. I have a friend Millie Gonzalez, who runs the Spina Bifida Resource Network, and she's in a wheelchair most of the time, and she is a dancer. So she dances and like tours doing that in a wheelchair, and like it just goes to show nothing stops you. Like most athletes, nothing stops them. If they want to continue, they will. They just need to find a way. It wasn't until I started boxing that I learned I'm naturally athletic. I'm a klutz, but I'm naturally athletic.
I
Like,
love it. I love it. That's amazing. You've done a lot. I mean, that's great. Bodybuilding, boxing, and all this stuff. I mean, I'm sure that benefits you so much I heard some of your stories, so I'm sure psychologically and physically it's been a blessing for you being active.
It has. It made me feel normal in ways I didn't feel.
That's a topic that I learned from my father, the stigmatization of illness.
Yeah.
That he suffered from that back in the day when we were kind of dumb about social things in the 70s. If you're, a little league ball player and, in the 70s you had or 60s, really, I keep saying 70s, we're talking 50s, 60s. If you had a chronic illness, like pretty much, there's something different about you and you're not normal and you're almost super abnormal. And then people would isolate away from you. And then it happens also, like Frank, you went through your ACL tear, and then your local basketball guys that you play with or whoever, and all of a sudden you're not in the weekly, whatever pickup games, and you lose your support there, and the people that picked you up probably, pretty important social support wise. So, we deal with isolation at all levels.
Yeah, I used to play every week, twice a week on the weekends with the same group of guys. More social, really, than right. I mean, the games were good and 2 courts running full, and we had a commissioner. And if you had an egregious foul, you got suspended for a couple of weeks. I mean, it was very much, somebody clocked somebody. I'm sorry, you can't come back for 2 weeks.
Love it.
Then I blew out my ACL. Then I got it fixed, and that took 8 months of rehab, running in circles, running figure eights. People thought I was crazy. But I did every rehab exercise the PT had me doing, and that first time down the court after 8 months was just worth every moment. And then one of the guys coached basketball at Bishop's. It's a high-end prep school in La Jolla, California.
Mm-hmm. La Jolla is beautiful. Wow.
And he said he had a flyer for the basketball camp, for high school basketball camp. And I never got a chance to go to basketball camp. I wasn't on my radar when I was a kid. So I just, I don't know anything. Pick and roll is the same as a bagel to me. So I said to him, "Hey man, I've never been able to go to basketball camp. Can I go?" And he goes, "You got $100?" I go, "Yeah." He goes, "You're going to basketball camp." So at 44 years old, with all these 11th, 9th, 10th, 11th graders, going to basketball camp, and there were fathers on the sidelines, younger than I, watching me go up and down the court with the kids, and you could tell by the look on their faces they really wanted to be out there. And they brought a guy in who was 5'5", who played in the NBA, like Spud Webb size, who could jam Robinson's it. Size. Yeah, exactly, who could jam it. And he said, they told me, motivational speaker. And he's telling the kids, they told me all my life I'd never amount to anything in basketball. There's no way you're going to play pro basketball at 5'5". And, of course he did. And then he looks at me, and I've got my safety glasses on, my mouthpiece in, elbow pads. And he goes, look at Frank. Look at Frank King. Do you think he loves this game? If you want to be good at this and take this somewhere, you need to love the game as much. He's 44 and he's out here. He loves the game.
You guys will like this. That hits a nerve. Yeah. That's something you'll never forget, Frank, huh?
No.
An NBA guy telling you that. That's cool. I was in the outfield. I actually messaged him today, Adam Wainwright with the Cardinals. I don't know if the pitcher. Adam was in the outfield, and Adam is a pretty big, popular guy in St. Louis. One of the better pitchers of our time, and I'm in the outfield, and I love baseball so much. So, like for me, when I was the rehab coordinator, I was like in love. I was in La La Land. So the second I had a chance to get out of the training room, I would sneak onto the field, and they'd be on the radio, paging me, say, "Hey, we got people in the training room out," and I'd be out there shagging fly balls, and I'm throwing balls into the bucket. And I'm power shagging, as I call it. I'm like, just, all the other ball players, they're like, let me get on the golf course, get out of spring for the day. And I'm just, I'm running around. And Adam Wainwright, he's tall. He's like 6'5". I'm 5'5". And he's watching me throw the ball in. I played in college, so I have an arm. And he keeps seeing, he's going back and forth with his head. And he goes up to me. He's like, damn, that's the best trainer arm I've ever seen. And and then the Cardinals, their field coordinator, they told me back in 2016, the meeting, they'd always have fun. And they're like, oh, the most improved arm of the year, Dave Meyer. So I could relate to that, Frank. I'm always going to be, Rudy was my favorite movie. All right, let's just say that. So Rudy was my favorite movie growing up. I always kind of had that attitude. And I don't know what the heck it is, guys, but like, I could be outside running just my daily exercise and I feel like I'm freaking getting ready to run out a tunnel. It's just innate to me, man. It's just, it connects me to this life. I guess that's what it's attracted me to physical rehab and helping people with that. It just, I know how alive I feel when I'm doing things with my body. And I could sit here all day meditating, but until I put it out there on the ground, it just doesn't feel the same. So I guess that's what's attracted me to all this.
Well, and after I went to camp, I picked up some skills. I learned how to post up and,
Nice.
and some of the guys after a couple of times up and down the court, they go, where did you learn that? Because I was the last picked always.
Yeah.
We'd have somebody new come to the court and they're picking teams and I'm 6'1", so they look at me and I go, no, don't waste a draft choice. I'm the worst guy. Just pick somebody else. I'm last. Just and
you just let them know.
Yeah, I can remember some guy missed the shot. And he goes, I'm the worst guy out here. I'm going, hold on, time out. No, sorry, I am the worst guy out here.
But you were still playing. That's amazing.
Well, but you know what it is I had lungs and legs, and I played both ends of the court. And they respected that.
Hard hustle.
I remember I was playing in Centralia inside, and there was a loose ball. And one of my teammates was standing between me and the loose ball. So I just clocked him out of the way. And he went flying. And I dived on the ball, got it, pitched it up, passed it off. And he's bitching at me. And I go, man, you're standing still.
Frank Rodman.
You're useless if you're standing still. So don't get mad at it. Yeah. And I said, by the way, the guy who just knocked you down has got an AARP card. Live with that.
I come from a family I'm the only one who is not consistently into sports. Like everyone was into sports. When I was 7 years old, they made me go to a basketball clinic. I had a seizure disorder. Okay. So the ball wasn't the only thing dribbling down the court. Like it was intense. I know basketball. I understand it. I just can't play it. So it wasn't.
Me and you both. I guess all three of us.
It wasn't until I got into boxing that I found my stride. And I went to this boxing club in New York, Church Street Boxing. I don't know if you heard of it.
No.
But they had us run around the block a few times as part of the drill. So I'm running around the block. This guy passes me once. And I'm running around the block. And he passes me again. And as he passes me a second time, I look at him. I yell, "Show off!" He turns around, starts cracking up.
I love that.
Another time I'm in the ring and the whole class is there and we're taking turns and I throw a punch and my shoe falls off. And the instructor looks at me and I shrug my shoulder and start laughing and punch the guy in the face. And he's just dying on the floor.
That's good. That's beautiful.
Same trainer goes, so we're all gonna get in the ring today. I don't care if you're man, woman, cripple. I look around, I go, I'm cripple. And he starts cracking up and has to stop the class for 5 minutes to finish laughing. So
it's interesting, Mike. What I find you had this at a very young age, your brain injury, right? You were saying you were how old?
18 months.
18 months. Yeah. it's just interesting to me, and I saw with my dad too. I remember when I was at Rusk Institute at NYU as a student, and seeing the pediatric cases, the neuro cases. It seems like when you're going through it at a young age and you persevere through some of it, you do have a different attitude and a different mental muscle. And then some people who experience it at different phases of their lives, older, middle-aged, high school age, they're not really ready for it and they don't know how to deal with it. So I always thought it was interesting. I mean, it sounds like you have, I've heard some of your stories, so I know you've gone through a lot of different things, but I think there's something to be said for developing this at a young age.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think everybody should be disabled at a young age.
Yeah. Yeah, they made us do a disability simulation at NYU. I don't know if you guys know that they do that.
No.
Yeah.
What is that?
All right. So my first year at NYU getting my DPT, it's controversial. They don't do this at all programs. I don't know if they still do it, but NYU did. And they basically assigned you to different cases, and you were going to wear certain braces and utilize certain assistive devices and simulate a specific condition. And you being, of course, Manhattan, you're going to walk around the city for a day and do your thing, and you're going to simulate what it's like. And so I was given a case that essentially was like a hemiparesis. It was like a locked knee, an immobilizer, and Lofstrand crutch. And I think I was in a sling. So simulating upper and lower hemiparesis. And it was only one day, but I still remember it, like going into the bagel store, Essa Bagel on 23rd and, or was it like 18th and First Avenue, and people from my normal life to that day, the way people looked at me was like a right angle. It was very different. Right? People, social psychology, whatever it is, whether it's good or bad, it's totally different. It's totally different. I mean, I don't know like you, of course, but that one day I had a little insight into it.
Yeah, I have to every time I leave the house, adjust my thought process to how are people gonna see me. Yeah. And I'm okay when kids look at me funny, like they're curious, young kids.
Right.
But when older people do it, I get very offended. And it's all in how they approach me. If someone came up to me and said, I see how you're walking. Can I ask you a question? That's great. Somebody going, what's wrong with you? Like, why are you looking like that? Or you freak?
Does that happen?
It's happened, yeah. I've had people pass me and give the sign of the cross, which pisses me off because they're afraid. In certain religions,
don't come near me.
To come near, like it's contagious.
Yeah, my fiance is Russian. She don't touch your body part. Talking about an injury, it pisses me off. I'm like, relax. I mean, I have to talk about these things. I'm a physical therapist. But yeah, you're right. It's wow.
Well, and I worked for a radio station in Raleigh for a while.
You got a heck of a voice, Frank.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Oh my God, I jerk off just to his voice.
Come on.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah. And we were raising money for, I can't remember what charity was, but the idea was I volunteered to get in a wheelchair until we raised $5,000. And so every time I left the house from my front porch to wherever I went, I stayed in the chair. Now, when I drove the car, I had to get the wheelchair out of the trunk and get in it and go into the post office or whatever. But I went to a concert. It was Eric Clapton concert in the wheelchair. And I was a little worried that people who are really confined to a wheelchair would find it offensive. Mm-hmm. But because I was raising money for a cause, and they knew me from the radio, they knew what I was up to. And so it took me under their wing, and we rolled here and there, and a great sense of humor. A guy grabbed the wheel on my wheelchair, he leaned me backwards. He go, what is it? Flip you for a beer? He said, Frank, here's the deal. The nice thing about being in a wheelchair is nobody makes eye contact. So if there's a woman coming towards you with big boobs, you can stare right at him. She will never know.
I didn't know that day.
Yeah, because she will not make eye contact. She will not. And I discovered
I had my one day. Damn.
Yeah, and I discovered the handicap accessible does not mean handicap easy. I mean, some of those ramps you really have to work to get up and down, and doors. Regular doors. It's you don't have the push button where it opens. It's just it was eye opening.
Have I got a story for you guys? I was 21, 22. I had a foot fusion operation, and so I couldn't walk for a long time. And I got a motorized wheelchair. My parents live on this hill, and I took the wheelchair out, and I lost traction, and I just started speeding down this hill, and I couldn't stop myself. And that was cool. Like nothing happened. It was fun.
You were good.
But I went into the city one day, and I live in Staten Island. So
sorry to hear that.
Yeah, me too. So I went when I was coming back home, the wheelchair stopped working. The motorized wheelchair stopped working, and there's this huge ramp to get up onto the ferry, and I couldn't get up there for the life of me.
Just stuck.
I had to ask people for help.
People just don't realize what it's like to get around with medical devices and equipment. I mean, I don't want to get, I had a guy came home after his third ACL reconstruction, and he had the other patellar tendon taken to be the graft because the other knee was so carved up. And they gave him, I think he was in a wheelchair. But because he had surgery on the other knee as well, he obviously was gonna have a lot of difficulty getting around. And as he went to go step up into his house, he didn't have a ramp for the wheelchair. He ended up falling and fracturing his patella. So the day he was coming home from his third ACL reconstruction, on the opposite knee, he fractured that patella just because the doctor didn't take the time, or I don't want to be vindictive, but they didn't tell him, hey, you're going to have to figure out how you're going to get around that day or the next 2 days because both of your knees are down right now. And even as professionals, we forget because not that we take it for granted, but like we're not truly putting ourselves in the shoes of people that are utilizing these things as much as we sometimes need to. And it's a real thing, small little things, details.
So we have a couple of comments from people. I want to read them to you if you don't mind.
Sure. Was this live?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
What did you say? Something you do regret?
No, I don't. But I kind of like the fact that it is live. This is the real radio stuff. This isn't the BS podcast. Yeah. All right.
Thank you. Will Marsh said y'all should try Olympic lifting. It's more fun. And Alexis Agnello said, I've heard good therapists do that in schooling about the simulations. And yeah. She next wrote, I have spina bifida and in a wheelchair, and I have a right side hemiparesis. I've been trying on and off my whole adult life to finish a manuscript. Starting to think brain injury on both sides is why it's taking me so long. Thanks, guys. Then she said, I inflamed my AC joint so many times when I was in Emmanuel in high school. 2 ramps in my high school were too code, but still too steep. She then said, I wish Frank King was reading all these comments. No, she didn't say that last one. I think,
I'm sorry, what's her name?
Alexis Agnello.
Nice to meet you, Alexis. I think that's amazing to write that manuscript. So I started writing the book in the fall of 2019, and it took me about 3 or 4 months to write the first draft. If there's anything I can tell you, if you're looking to write something, please go do it. You probably have a ton to share with your experience, and just go start writing. 1,000 words, 2,000 words a day, 500 words a day. Just like weightlifting, just build up, week by week, but just get it out there, and then worry about the editing when you get there. That would be a great topic, and I'm sure a lot of people would find that. I know a lot of people in my network that would love to read that. So,
Dave, thank you so much for coming. We're gonna have to wrap things up.
You got it.
Dave Meyer, Dr. Dave Meyer, can be found on Instagram at www.instagram.com/Dave M. Meyer and Twitter at Injure to Elite. You can learn more about him at drdavemeyer.com, and you can find his book on Amazon. The link will be up in the notes. What were you going to say, Dave? I didn't mean to talk over.
No, you did great. I was just going to say, you could just Google Injured to Elite or Dave Meyer, physical therapist, and be able to find me there.
Alexis said thank you.
Good name for a TED Talk, by the way, Injured to Elite.
Thanks. Hey, I'd love to hear you did a TEDx talk. I'm looking forward to listening to that.
5 of them, actually.
Well, I need.
He said bragging.
I love it. Thank you, guys. It's been kind of fun. I really haven't talked in the side of humor as much as I did today with all this. So it's been a breath of fresh air, and I really appreciate you guys opening up your show to me. Thank you so much.
Really loved having you. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
I'm going to end the broadcast. Don't go anywhere.
Okay.
Bye, guys.